Welcome to Zlography, where politics is broken down and people can govern their government. I'm your host, Debz. Thank you for joining us for another episode. Government affects where we live, where we work, how our children learn, and how our communities grow. Yet, too often, the decisions that shape our lives happen without our understanding or participation. That's where Zlography comes in. Welcome to Zlography, where politics is broken down and citizens learn how to govern their government. Hosted by Debz, Zlography examines American politics through a Caribbean lens because informed citizens build stronger communities. This is Zlography. Today's episode is called The People's Voice. Every election is about more than winning or losing. It's about representing leadership and the people. Today, we explore what it truly means to represent the people. Our guest today is former Lawrenceville City Council member Austin Thompson. Austin's journey into public service was built on community leadership. Born in Guyana, Austin brought service, integrity, and commitment. His first campaign introduced him as the People's Counselor. Today, we'll discuss his journey, his service, and his leadership. Austin, welcome to Zlography.
Thank you so much. I am pleased to be here, and I just want to congratulate you on your launch into podcasting. I think you've been doing a fantastic job, and I wish you long-term success. Thank you.
Thanks, Austin. Before we begin, I'd like to share a little history with everyone. I volunteered on your very first campaign, then managed your next two. Guess what? I found the original post-war campaign shirt. It?
Yes.
It reads, The People's Council. Austin, what did that mean to you?
Well, the People's Counselor. I remember when I first conjured up that tagline, and a friend of mine told me that's weak. The People's Counselor, people don't want to hear that. And I said, why not? The People's Counselor meant that I'm a man of the people. My campaign pillars were service, inclusion, representation, right? And I have always given service to people. I have been a public servant long before I ran for office. I have been in the community on various levels and in various aspects, serving with our youth, with our homeless, with families in need through different organizations, especially in the Caribbean community. We partner with various churches to work on different programs. So service to people is at the core of everything I do. And service, inclusion, representation are the pillars that I chose for that. So the People's Counselor, yes, I am a man of the people. I bring service to the people. I bring inclusion to the people. I bring representation to the people. I'm elected by the people, right? Mm-hmm. Or was elected by the people. So my service and my commitment is to them, not an institution in which I serve. So that's near and dear to me as a public servant, is that, yes, and that's what, that was the premise to the People's Counselor.
I met you in 2007, and we worked with the community, with the homeless. Do you believe you remained true to your vision after you were elected to office?
Yes, I did. Because the one thing I did when I was elected was a carryover from my campaign. Before I was elected, I hosted coffee meetings, Coffee with Candidate Thompson. And it was every Saturday of the month through the entire campaign season. When I was elected and sworn into office, then it became Coffee with Councilman Thompson. And that was done, and I am proud of this. I'm proud of this milestone because it was scheduled twice a month, every month, 96 Saturdays, 48 months. I never missed a Saturday. Mm-hmm. I never missed a month. And it was part of my commitment to the people, because when I was campaigning, residents throughout the city said, "Oh, we never see our council members. We don't know who our council members are. They don't come out and engage us or anything like that. They're not accessible." And I said, "Well, I'm going to change that when I get elected." And I got elected, and I continue that. So yes, I held true to that. And not only at the venue where I hosted the coffee meetings, but I went and I visited residents in their home. And I did, and it's funny, I laugh because I did much of this without a vehicle, right? I did much of this without a vehicle. And even though I did not have access to a vehicle, I still kept my appointments. I used Uber, I used Lyft, I used Gwinnett Transit. I walked in some cases, because I believe that service to people should be at the core of every elected office. Because when we make campaign promises, we tell the people, "Oh yes, we'll be there for you. We'll take care of your concerns and your challenges." And then for some individuals, for whatever reason, as soon as they are sworn in, they do it about face. And all of a sudden, it's not about the people, right? So, but with me, because of my background in community service and activism, I had to maintain that commitment of serving people. So, yes.
Thank you, Austin, for always being there for the community and serving the people and listening to people's voices. What I'd like to know, who was Austin Thompson before politics, before community service?
Well, I was an engineer for 25 years. I was an engineer, senior compliance engineer and project manager. As a compliance engineer, my work involved testing and evaluating electronic manufactured products. I worked alongside manufacturing engineers who design and produce electronic devices. Much of what you see in the studio here carries certification marks on the back of them. So evaluation and certification labs, where I worked, we were responsible for testing and evaluating much of these electronic devices. It could be medical devices, it could be huge floor standing industrial units and systems, Wi-Fi units, wireless units, Internet of Things, devices, you name it, right? And I worked as an engineer. And outside of my engineering job, I planned, organized, and hosted an entrepreneurship and small business summit for 8 years, right? And which is part of my whole giving back to the community, right? So I was always, growing and developing in my own professional space, but yet I wanted to also do something as far as giving back to a community. And I gave back to entrepreneurs. So for 8 years, I planned and organized an entrepreneurship and small business summit. I'm very proud of that. I conducted workshops. I conducted symposiums. I built a lot of great relationships through that. And I worked alongside other organizations and other professionals, and as far as service to people. So, I had a little bit of a personal life because I was so focused on my own personal development, my own professional development, and all the projects that I did. It's only now that I sit back and say, wow, I really should have paid a little bit more attention to myself, But, I had a great time. It was great.
So before public office, you were still giving back to the community and always working in the community. Tell our audience, what about growing up in Guyana?
Well, I'm originally from the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, and I want to say congratulations to the Guyanese community. We are celebrating 60 years of independence this year. In conjunction with the Barbadian community, they're also celebrating 60 years of independence. As a Guyanese, we are geographically located in South America. And we're actually considered part of Latin America, but because of our relation to the archipelago of Caribbean islands, we are Caribbean by culture, right? And the Caribbean community, CARICOM body of leadership is housed in Georgetown, Guyana, right? And, Guyanese, as other West Indian communities, we are hardworking people. We're driven, we're hardworking, we're determined. When we set our sights on something, we go after it. We know our purpose. We know our worth. We know what it is that we want to do. And despite challenges, despite setbacks, despite whatever pitfalls may appear on our path to success, we leap over them and we accomplish them. So to be Guyanese is to be determined and to always seeking accomplishment, always seeking to better yourself, right? And this is why, we as Guyanese, you'll always find us in high-performing capacities, because that's who we are. That's who we are.
So what values still guide your leadership today?
Accountability. I always believe in being accountable. If something goes wrong or go right, and this comes from my own professional development. As a project manager, you are accountable to the project. As a project manager, as an engineer, you're accountable to the work that you're doing. Even as a business consultant, managing entrepreneurship activity, you're accountable to the entrepreneurs you're guiding. So accountability is one thing, right? When I had folks calling me, Councilman Thompson, this is that. Councilman Thompson, that is this, and they're expressing their grievance, I was accountable to them as constituents because they came to me with a problem. Being reliable, being committed, being loyal. And another value I think a lot of people miss is just being able to laugh. Being able to laugh. Those who know me, really know me, know I love to be comical. That is something I value because why? Here's why. And I think sometimes we take this for granted because you see someone who's comical and who, might be jovial, crack jokes sometimes. You might think of them as being weak and not someone to be taken seriously. But for me personally, I use humor to break tension. I use humor to break stress, right? I use humor as a way of building relationships with people. I love to laugh. I think that even in my corporate career when I worked as an engineer, we didn't always have a perfect day. No one has a perfect day at work. But I worked in an environment that was so fast-paced and high-stressed that there were people who were literally going to fall out in front of me because they were just taking so seriously the problem, right? For every problem, there's a solution. And for me, part of the solution is relaxing, find something to joke about, be comical about, and let's fix the problem, right? Not everyone takes to that analogy, because they think you have to be stone-faced and serious all the time. And not me. I'm like, hey, I always find something to joke about. But I think that's another quality of mine, is that I have the ability to laugh and break the ice. I can just break out of nowhere and then get back serious because, everything is, you just can't be comical all the time. You can't be serious all the time. But you just have to know when to turn it off and on, right? But yeah, accountability, responsibility, being commitment, and commit yourself. If you say you're going to do something, do it.
Yes.
If you say you're going to represent the people, represent the people. Because part of my work as an elected official was being expected to go along, to get along with what the institution wanted, right? I remember when I was elected, I had 2 council members that individually scheduled meetings with me to sit down with me to tell me how I am to conduct myself on the city council. Literally, how to conduct myself on the city council. These are the policies that you go along with. This is the way we do things. And this is how you're expected to align yourself with what we believe in. But what about the people? What about the people who elected me? What about the democracy we promised them? This is a democratic process. They voted to elect me into office. And now I have to turn my back on them, and to go along to get along. I am not a person who goes along to get along, right? Doesn't mean I can't work with people. I love working with people.
Yes.
With people with different ideas, people with different perspectives and philosophies. I love working with people. But if I have pledged a commitment to the people, I will maintain that commitment to the people because that's what I ran on. And that's the one thing I always want my residents, the constituents, to really understand, that I was committed to them because that's one of the qualities and characteristics of Austin Thompson.
Today's segment is called The People's Voice, and you have always amplified the people. You have always gone out to your constituents, talking to them and making sure that you resonate what they wanted in Lawrenceville. Tell me a little bit more about Lawrenceville.
Lawrenceville is a city. The city of Lawrenceville has a population of about 35,000 residents. It's a minority-majority city. And we are growing a city. And I still use the word we, right? I still see myself as part of the city of Lawrenceville beyond just being a resident. We're growing the city to be a city that everyone enjoys. You can come into the city, enjoy fine dining. You can enjoy diverse options of food and cuisine. Enjoy shows at the Lawrenceville Arts Center and the Aurora Theater. Big up to Ann Carroll. She is phenomenal. She and her husband, Anthony, running the Aurora Theater and the Aurora Theater family. You can go to a movie, a theater, a production, have dinner, and soon you'll be able to spend a night or two at our local hotel, right? And, it's a city where I saw it as a destination city. And Lawrenceville has transformed from, it's kind of like a Mayberry. If you remember the Andy Griffith show.
Yes.
Kind of like a Mayberry. And now we're part of a growing metropolis, right? We are considered part of Metro Atlanta. And when I first ran, I always said, why Atlanta? Why Atlanta? Why not Lawrenceville? Right? Lawrenceville is the county seat of Gwinnett, the second largest county in the state of Georgia. And I always felt that with the airport, Briscoe Airport, which is Gwinnett County owned, and I always felt that people who are flying in and out of the airport can plan to stay in Lawrenceville and enjoy fine dining and a theater production, spend a night now at a hotel that will be open sometime, maybe this fall. They're finishing up construction. And great, we have great people. We have great shows on the amphitheater, and I have to say, congratulations and big up to our Office of Economic Development, and they're doing a fantastic job have always done a fantastic job with working with event planners to bring some of the most welcoming and well performance and produced shows in the city of Lawrenceville. So, Lawrenceville is a great place to be. Lawrenceville is a great place to be. We have a great police department. We have great code enforcement. The quality of life, the development around Lawrenceville. We have a Lawrenceville long-range plan that we put into place, right? A comprehensive plan. And what that is a document, and I was part of the comprehensive plan committee at one time. And it's basically keeping the quality of the city, making sure that whatever we develop, whatever we bring and invite into the city maintains the character of the city. So yes, Lawrenceville is a great place to be. To come, not just to travel through or to come and dine and to see a show, but consider living in Lawrenceville. It's a great place to live and raise a family.
Lawrenceville is definitely a great city to raise family, beautiful city. Talking about family, let's go back to the beginning. We'll talk about more about Lawrenceville a little later.
Okay.
But let's go back to the beginning. Tell us about your childhood.
Well, I left Guyana at the age of 7. So a lot of my primary school years were in Guyana.
Okay.
When I moved here, when I immigrated to the United States, I got my citizenship like around 1981, and I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. I moved to East New York, Brooklyn, and I lived in Flatbush, the Flatbush area, Crown Heights. It was kind of rough because we grew up sort of like in the inner city, right? Lower income, inner city communities, and this is where my passion for fighting for those who live in the inner city and lower income areas, that's where it comes from, because I grew up in the projects.
Okay.
Right? I grew up in the projects. I have no problem with saying that I grew up in the projects, because there are many people who didn't start out living in desirable areas, and they grew and progressed into those type of living environments, but they somewhat have a shame of saying that I come from a certain neighborhood or community. No, I'm very proud of where I grew up, because that shaped me as an individual. As a Guyanese, yes, determination and ambitious, so on and so forth. But a lot of the things that I had to endure growing up in East New York, Brooklyn, and Flatbush, Crown Heights, it gives you a different perspective of life, right? I went to high school at Erasmus Hall High School, where I was a theater major. So I studied theater for 3 years early in my life. That's one of the unknown things about Austin Thompson. I love theater, So yeah, my early life, it was being shaped to fight, being shaped to respect my environment, to respect people, and to always, you can have a vision of the future you want for yourself, but never forget where you come from.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was inspiring. Did you have anyone who inspired you growing up?
I had individuals who inspired me. My uncles, very inspired by my uncles. My one who dearly departed recently, and my other uncle who lives in Canada. And they were like my extended fathers, and I respect them with the highest level of respect that I can have for my uncles. Coming from the Caribbean, you have aunts and uncles that you revere, that you look up to, and they look after you, and they treat you like their own, right? And I always say that my father, when he left, when my father immigrated to the United States, my mother immigrated to the United States, I was left in the care with one of my uncles, right? Him and his wife helped to raise me. He's the uncle that just recently departed, transitioned. And I never felt like an outsider, right? I always felt like I was one of his kids, right? And, so he was always one that inspired me. My other uncle, who lives in Canada, inspired me. He taught me a lot of things, but outside of family, I look at Malcolm X, El Hajj Malik El Shabazz. I look at Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, right? I look at, oh man, there's so many different people, right? I got, especially those who fought for civil rights, who stood up to systems of oppression and inequality, right? Who knew that, hey, my life is in jeopardy, my career is in jeopardy, my whole livelihood is in jeopardy, but I will stand firm in what I believe, I mean, you look at you study someone like Harriet Tubman, right? You study someone like Harriet Tubman, who led the Underground Railroad, and a woman who had to walk in the dead of night.
Yes.
And navigate. I forgot how many times she made the trip to go to the north and come back. Incredible resilience, incredible bravery, right? As we celebrate the 250th anniversary of the United States of America, I think back to a speech that Frederick Douglass, a former slave himself, born into slavery in 1818, and became an abolitionist, right? After he escaped to freedom. In 1852, he delivered a speech. They asked him to deliver a speech on the 76th anniversary of America's independence, right? America gained independence in 1776, right? And thereafter was written the Declaration of Independence, right? And he made a speech to what is the slave is your 4th of July, right? And in that speech, he was saying, because remember, in 1852, Black people were still enslaved.
Yes.
Emancipation Proclamation was not signed until 1863. And 2 years later, Blacks in Galveston, Texas, did not realize that they were free for 2 years.
Yes.
And that's how we gave birth to Juneteenth on June 19th, right? So people like that inspire me because they stand up and they speak out. I'm inspired by Barack Obama, the first African-American man to win the presidency of the United States. I can't imagine what he had to go through as president. When after his first term, they were deliberately trying to make him a one-term president because he was a successful Black man. And we understand how Black excellence is under attack. Black achievement is under attack in America. But when Barack Obama was elected president the first time, I can't imagine the immense pressure his family suffered. And then he had the audacity to win a second term, and that's how we gave way to what we have today, in trying to prevent Black people from achieving excellence and success in this country, So people who have stood up and represented our people and represented what was right in this country are those who inspired me.
Thank goodness the birthright citizenship was thrown out. I actually have to give a shout out to that.
Yes.
With so many heroes and sheroes, was there a defining moment in your life?
A defining moment was when I was elected. I was elected as the first man of African descent to the City Council of Lawrenceville. That was history. And in the 200 years of Lawrenceville's chartered history, no Black man has ever been elected to the City Council. That in itself was inspiring to a lot of young Black men who I mentor, members of my family, to know that I came from humble beginnings in Georgetown, Guyana, raised in inner cities, public housing, and to grow up and evolve into this young man who pursued politics and one day to become an elected official to serve the public, and served 1 year as a deputy mayor of Lawrenceville.
I remember that.
That was a defining moment in my life, because at that point I really knew I had to maintain myself as a representative force to everyone who's looking at me or looking up to me, because I mentor a lot of young people, right? I mentor a lot of young people. So, but when they see me, they have to see me in a certain light, being that example to which they hold, right? And I was very proud of that moment.
Oh wow, that was truly inspiring. The first Black man to be elected to City of Lawrenceville City Council.
Right.
That is certainly inspiring. When did you think public service became your calling?
Well, I was a student at Medgar Evers College in Brooklyn at Jesse Jackson's second run for office in 1988. I'm dating myself here. And I turned 18 in 1987, so I was eligible to vote. Jesse Jackson first ran for president in 1984, and then he ran again in 1988. And a friend of mine, one of my classmates, a Nigerian guy, he said, I'm working with the Jesse Jackson campaign. We usually meet at Long Island University, which is the downtown Brooklyn location. Why don't you come to a meeting and help volunteer for his campaign? And that's where it started. And ever since then, I never turned back. And I have served as a volunteer at different levels. I've been a campaign manager. I've been a fundraising manager. I've been a phone banking manager. I've been canvassing manager. I served on every level of public service. In 2012, I won a delegate seat. I won a seat to be a delegate for the DNC, the Democratic National Convention, to cast my vote for Barack Obama to be president of the United States. So not be president of the United States, but to be the Democratic Party's representative for the president of the United States in his second term. And, from there, I became more active in the party. Before then, I was an at-large member, and I worked on Donna McLeod's campaign. I worked on Jenna S. Sudan's campaign. I worked on so many different campaigns. I worked on Roy Barnes' 2010 campaign. Okay. I lived in, I had just moved from Marietta, and I had to go back to Marietta in downtown Marietta to volunteer in his campaign office. So Roy Barnes, it was a failed camp. He didn't win that election, but it was great, working on his campaign. And then, I served on several committees for the City of Lawrenceville, the Architectural Review Board, and the Lawrenceville Neighborhood Alliance. And, I remember at the time I read that then Mayor Judy Jordan Johnson would not run for her third term as mayor. And the Post 1 Councilman, David Still, was going to abdicate his position to run for mayor. And that Post 1 seat was vacant. So I ran in that election against Glenn Martin, who became councilman. It was three candidates, and Glenn Martin won that seat. I came in second. And I remember after the election loss, I took a vacation to Florida. And I was at Fort Walton Beach. I was in one of the many beaches out there. And I thought to myself, you should run again. And, members of the party and some of the other folks whose campaigns I supported always encouraged me to run. They say, hey, Austin, you'll be great as a public servant. You should run for this, run for that. And the one thing that's near and dear to me is not about the position. It's not about the capacity in which I serve. I have to make sure whatever I'm doing, it's about serving the people, right? So local politics is where it matters. So I knew I was going to run again for city council. And then I ran the second time and I was victorious, And that was, like I said, a defining moment in my life. I'm glad I served. I'm glad that I took a leap of faith and challenged myself to run for office again, because sometimes people get discouraged after a loss, And I've learned in life, you're going to have wins, you're going to have losses. I played high school sports. I played championship football. Oh. Right? I'm used to losses and wins. And on a way to a winning season, you learn a lot of things. On a way to a losing season, you learn a lot of things. So you really have to capture those lessons that you learned, right? And that's what I'm doing now. Because even though I lost on November 2025, I'm in a period now of reflection on what is next. And I'm taking all those experiences and I'm packaging them into, okay, what comes next?
Those are a lot of hats that you have worn,
Mm-hmm.
Austin. Is there something that people would be surprised to learn about you?
Well, my life is an open book already.
Okay.
My life is an open book. I think people would be surprised, I guess, to realize that you can be yourself around me. You can be relaxed around me. I am not God, okay? I am not a higher power. So when you come around me, there's no need to, always act in reverence. But no, I want people to relax around me. I want people to be comfortable around me. I always said, when I supervised techs in my job,
Mm-hmm.
I always wanted to be that supervisor that my techs could come to. Even when things didn't go right, they come to me and they talk to me and we worked out a solution together. There are a lot of people in this world who, for whatever reason, they're going through personal challenges
Mm-hmm.
and they impose their challenges on people. Emotional intelligence is something that's very important because when you're dealing with relationships, when you're dealing with people, you have to really check your emotions and understand the emotions of others. And you have to put yourself in a position where you are empathetic to people.
Mm-hmm.
Empathy is part of leadership, right? And you have to understand people's pain, people's challenges. You have to understand that, hey, every day is not a good day for people, right? So, I want people to be relaxed around me. I want people to feel like Austin Thompson is the person I can talk to. And I've had that experience. I've had people come up to me, hey, Austin, I want to ask you a question. And I say, hey, go ask it, ask it. I have acquaintances who align with my political beliefs, my philosophical belief. And I have acquaintances who are 180 degrees out of phase with my political beliefs and philosophical beliefs. But the one thing that we agree to is mutual respect. We agree to disagree. We'll have conversations. I've had people who read my Facebook posts. You've read my Facebook posts. I believe in my First Amendment right to freedom of expression. I really do. I believe in my First Amendment right to freedom of expression. I've had people message me privately and say, I'd like to sit down and talk to you about your comment, about the comment you just made. And, and I'm just sure where you want to meet, and we would have a discussion about my comment, their beliefs about that comment, my beliefs. We're not going to come to an agreement. I mean, we're not going to solve world peace over, over that thing. But I mean, we leave the discussion. Could be 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, 2 hours. And we're shaking hands and we're saying, hey, man, have a good day. Thank you so much for meeting with me, so on and so forth. That's the mutual respect. Because we cannot expect everyone to believe the same thing as you. I don't expect everyone to believe the same thing as me, right? I don't want anybody to commit themselves to my beliefs and my way of thinking. Everyone has a right to their own independent thinking, right? And their own independent philosophies and what they believe in. I'm not to be loyal to you because you feel like somebody should be loyal to me, But no, I think that people really find that I'm that guy they can talk to, regardless if he might not agree with me. I'm a Democrat. I'm a Democrat. I've sat down with conservative Republicans and we've had great conversations. We might not agree on everything, but we were able to discuss and have conversation. And that's what it's all about.
I am one of those people who has called you out on your Facebook posts and had discussions with you.
I've had family members call me out on Facebook.
you said that you were the guy who you have both losses and winning, and you can balance them. So with doing that, how do you define success?
Here's the thing. On your way, and I forgot. Oh my God! I tell you, Nick Saban, the former coach of Alabama, was asked the same question at an interview about 2 years ago, and I can't quote him, but I think he worded it so beautifully, And I don't want my Georgia people to know that I'm secretly, watching Alabama football games. But I'm inspired also by coaches and individuals from various athletic backgrounds and what they stand for and everything. But how I define success. Success is understanding your wins and losses, yes. But knowing that a failure today is not a failure tomorrow, right? A flattened tire can be fixed, okay? You can repair a flat tire. You can pump air into the tire and bring life back to it and continue your journey. Success is not immediate. Success is not tomorrow. Success is not next week, next month, next year. Success may take a few years, but it's the patience, the persistence, remaining resilient, and making a commitment to your vision. That's how I define success. Success is recognizing that there's no success tomorrow. There's no success 5 minutes from now. There are people who launch businesses and immediately expect people to come rushing through the door. Sometimes, it takes 5-6 years before you can really realize the success of that business venture, right? When you start to, when I started college at the age of 18, I wasn't consistent. I was very intermittent with my college experience. I was in and out. I would register, withdraw, register, withdraw. It wasn't until the age of 26 I got it together. I continued. I had computer skills. Typing classes are very important. I took a typing class in high school, and the rest is history. But I always had computer skills. I surrounded myself with the right people. And from the age of 26 to the age of 35, I acquired 4 degrees, right? And what that taught me is that no matter how early you start the race, success is imminent as long as you stay in the race. Just don't give up. Just don't give up.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yes.
Let's get back to talking about Lawrenceville.
Yeah.
For someone who has never visited Lawrenceville, what makes Lawrenceville unique?
Lawrenceville, you have other cities surrounding Lawrenceville. Snellville has its character. Lilburn has its character. Buford has its character. Grayson, which is just down the road, has its character. I think what makes Lawrenceville DNA unique is the way in which people interact with one another, right? We have a sort of welcoming character in Lawrenceville. I have walked the sidewalks of Lawrenceville and had people just randomly come up and talk to me. I have gone in and out of restaurants and just had conversations with people. One thing I love with Lawrenceville, and see what attracted me to Lawrenceville? I was living in Duluth. So I had a choice, stay in Duluth, move down to Atlantic Station, because I love that kind of vibe, right? Or I was driving in and out of Lawrenceville, and I just loved the way the cars were parked along Kroger Street. And that's what really attracted me. It was the character of Lawrenceville. And again, it had this Mayberry feel, right?
That's what I thought.
People just want to have conversation. All right, people just want to have conversation. And, and you meet people walking, whether you're familiar with them or not, you just meet people walking from one place to another. You just strike up a conversation. I have gone to the old courthouse on the lawn of the old courthouse where they have music sometimes. And, I've sat down and just engaged in conversation. On the Lawrenceville lawn, we have concerts, just engage in conversation. It's just a feel that you get that you're home, right? Mm-hmm. And that people really enjoy one another in Lawrenceville. They do.
What challenges do you think still needs attention?
I think the one thing when I was on council, mm-hmm. the one thing was overdevelopment. Oh. And that's just not specific to Lawrenceville. That's specific to a lot of municipalities. People are just concerned with rapid development. Because with rapid development, you have increase in taxes, mm-hmm. you have increase in traffic, and just increase of so many different things, right? But, you offset those challenges with providing quality of service, mm-hmm. right? I mentioned our police department, great police department. You have a wonderful chief, Chief John Mullen, right? We have wonderful public service, right? Public utilities department, wonderful linemen. Once the power goes out, if you have power outages, those linemen are on it, right? Great sanitation department. I don't want to miss anybody because there's somebody's department that's going to call me up. They're going to go to Chuck Warmington, the city manager, and say, "Hey, Austin forgot to mention this." But we have great workers in the city, mm-hmm. right? We were a utility provider, and we have great services. We have people who are attentive and they listen to you, right? Are all your problems going to get addressed right away? No, but it will get addressed. And so overdevelopment, I think, or rapid development, I should say, because, people are moving. People are always moving. So right now, in the United States, there is a shortage in supply of housing, right? And in order to bring the prices of housing down, you have to increase the availability of housing. You have to increase the inventory, right? So there's a lot of overdevelopment, rapid development. I don't want to say overdevelopment, but rapid development in a lot of places. So people are concerned with that. Councilman Thompson, I see they're building this housing division over in such and such area. That area cannot support any additional traffic and so on. I mean, I got a lot of that. And, mm-hmm. With any city, we have to really look at adding inventory mm-hmm. in homes and apartments for people, because people need a place to live. They also need an affordable place to live, affordable housing. They also need an affordable place to live, right? A good mixture of workforce housing and affordable housing for new graduates, retirees, and working professionals. It's a lot of magic you got to work, right? To make people happy. You're not going to make everybody happy, but you do your best. You do your best. So if there's any challenge, I would say the one thing that comes to mind is just rapid development.
Rapid development.
Yes.
There were several bills that came through City Council while you were on City Council for rapid development, and you voted against mm-hmm. increasing housing for certain development that was too congested, and it was frowned upon and claimed that you had no new ideas. You want to expound a bit upon that?
Well, here's the thing. There are a couple of rezonings for housing developments I voted against. Mm-hmm. I voted against it because the reason why I did that, because when you have these hearings, you have developers that come before you, and they're presenting their plans for why they want areas rezoned, for the new developments. And one of my questions always was, okay, what percentage of your housing inventory will be for affordable housing, right? Or is there going to be any income-based, housing options? And if the developer tells me, well, no, that's not something we really considered, we'll have a discussion. And if I felt that, hey, well, I would like to see at least 5% of your inventory, designated for income housing, not low income, but affordable housing, and income-based housing, then I might vote against it, right? Because the one thing that I took into consideration, we have some really smart residents in our city. They will look at the agenda, see what's coming up for city council meetings. And they will call you or email you and say, hey, Councilman Thompson, there's something on the agenda we want to talk about, right? So my thing, and I've spoken to my city manager about this. Why don't we have 5% or 10% inventory from these developments designated to affordable housing or income-based housing? We have worked along with several organizations in the city to have that with apartments and so on and so forth. But I understand there's a need for increasing workforce housing because of the hospital, Northside Gwinnett, which is attracting some of the smartest people in the field of medicine. We have the Gwinnett Center for Justice, the GJAC, the Gwinnett Justice and Administration Center. We have which houses our courts. We have Georgia Gwinnett College.
Okay.
Our the president, the esteemed Dr. Joseph, resides in downtown Lawrenceville, right? So I understand the need for workforce housing and providing housing for folks who are a higher income, right? And trust me, I know, I was there, right? But we have residents who were concerned about gentrification. Gentrification is a real thing.
It is. It certainly
right? We have folks who are concerned with too many housing options that are not affordable, because a lot of our legacy residents and a lot of residents who are considering Lawrenceville want to see affordable housing options, right? So yeah, I didn't vote no on every one of them, There were some that I really liked, but then there were others I'm thinking, well, if we had some affordable options, I would vote for it, right? There's one in particular in the paper mill area where I think it was like 65 or 68 townhomes to be developed on the paper mill side of the city. And the residents were concerned because there is no traffic light going from paper mill onto Winder Highway. So you use a stop sign going if you want to go left, and there's a yield sign if you want to go right. What they were concerned with was that these 65 to 68 townhomes were going to bring extra traffic to an already busy bottleneck. One resident in particular said, I don't want that because it takes me a long time to make a left turn, and sometimes I'm late for work just because of that bottleneck. Other residents, and I met with these residents in the paper mill community. I want to give a shout out to Maureen Terry. We call her the mayor of Paper Mill, and she's very engaging. Out of 35,000 residents, you have those few who really stay in your ear about things, and Maureen Terry is one of them. And Maureen Terry organized a meeting with the residents in the paper mill area, and 100% of them said, we don't want that townhouse development. So I voted no on it.
Okay. Because
I understood. I have driven that intersection many times. And I know, what was going to happen in terms of traffic, right? And the bottleneck. And I know one of the provisions the city council or the city manager was making was introducing a roundabout
Okay.
to try to relieve that. They weren't with it. They still didn't want that, right? And we had a last minute provision that was being made. I can't exactly remember what it was, but the residents still didn't want it. I am not going to vote for something that the residents do not want. So, and the millage rate, which increased city taxes, right? Taxes on residents who live within the city. I voted against it. I voted against the occupational tax increase, which would impose additional taxes on the businesses in the city. I voted against that. And my votes, my no votes on those came from conversations I had with business owners and residents. So those things were frowned upon because I understand we needed to raise money for the city and there are things that we needed to do, assets and resources that we need. But I always spoke with our CFO, Mr. Keith Lee, who does a remarkable job managing the finances for the city. And I had numerous conversations with Keith, and I sat in his office, and we, trying to explain things to me. And I call him Professor Keith because he's so eloquent in the way he explains things. And but there's no reason to vote against the people. The people elect you to serve. And again, this goes back to those meetings I had when I first got elected. Because these are the things I was expected to do. I was expected to conduct myself as a councilman in this way, to vote the way the institution wanted me to vote.
Let's talk about your re-election campaign.
Mm-hmm.
As your campaign manager, I saw your journey. Today, I want viewers to hear your perspective. Looking back, what do you wish voters understood?
I wish voters understood that they had somebody who fought for them. They had someone who listened to them. They had someone who gave them a seat at the table that they asked for. They had someone who made himself available every month, twice a month, for 2 hours to listen to them, right? I wish my voters really understood that, yes, Councilman Thompson had numerous ideas. I sat with my city manager once a month. We discussed a lot of things. The one thing I really wanted to get off the ground was improving the marketing and the branding of Lawrenceville for businesses outside the downtown area. Because businesses outside the downtown area felt as if they were being neglected. They weren't marketed with the other businesses along Krogan and Pike Streets. And I spoke earlier about Briscoe Airport, and using that as a gateway to our city, right? So that people are not flying in to just have meetings and then fly back out.
Yeah.
But they're making Lawrenceville a destination city, right? I spoke with Representative Sam Park.
Okay.
Representative Sam Park, who was on the Small Business Committee. The other issue was that small businesses felt as if there was no funding for them to assist them, with their operational costs, right? Assist them with expansion and so on and so forth. When the city was awarded ARPA funds, for COVID, 100% of those ARPA funds went to infrastructure, 100%. Not even $1 was allocated to help the small businesses in the city, right? This is not hearsay. These are questions I asked, right? I spoke with Sam Park because I wanted to find out what is being discussed at the state capitol to help our local small businesses. Small businesses are the cornerstone of our economy. They create 66% of all net jobs. There are about 30 million small businesses in the United States. 99% of the businesses in America are small businesses.
That is true.
Right? Women-owned businesses are the fastest growing segment in the small business ecosystem. But yet still, women-owned businesses were always the first to close, especially minority businesses. So I'm speaking with Representative Sam Park at that time about what the state capitol is doing. Is there a line item in the budget and so on and so forth? Well, to find out that there's not really a line item in the budget for small businesses, but there are other things that we can consider, right? Economic development in our city, right? I spoke to our city manager about designating an area in our city to be a tech hub, right? If you look at Peachtree Corners, they have Atlanta Tech Park.
Yes, we do.
Right? In Peachtree Corners. They are doing testing of unmanned vehicles in Peachtree Corners. I have visited that area and I did an interview with the young lady who runs it. Right? So many different things. At Discovery High School, I'm a mentor, right, in the Business and the Entrepreneurship Academy, run by Ms. Sherry Stephenson, okay? At Alton C. Cruz Middle School, I work with Mr. Rod Hames with his students in the entrepreneurship program, right? I'm a mentor at those two schools. So I wanted to implement a program on doing Lawrenceville hosting or doing partnerships with our young people with the schools in our city, right? When my opponent said I have no new ideas, I understand that's political. Mm-hmm. It's political strategy. We're going to mischaracterize him as someone with no new ideas, when he has nothing to think about. My whole life has been about coming up with ideas. It didn't take 4 years on the city council because I'm an engineer, I'm an entrepreneur, and even to this day, as I sit in this seat, I'm working with different entities on new ideas. But what I wanted to do was make Lawrenceville this destination city. I sat down with representatives of the Lawrenceville Arts Center, right? I brought city leaders together with the managing representatives of Briscoe Airport. We met at a restaurant in downtown Lawrenceville. There's about 8 or 9 of us on how we can give birth to this new branding of Lawrenceville, making it a destination city with the airport as the crutch of this whole thing.
You have also said your priority was representing your constituents. Sometimes that meant disagreeing with other leaders. You have shared the mayor told you he supported your opponent because disagreements over your votes. Can you walk us through that conversation? How did that conversation affect you personally?
Well, I don't have anything against our mayor. I don't. But it was shortly after I had my launch at Lego Mayor, several speakers said some great things about me, because they worked along with me and they said some good things, especially Honorable Representative for House District 102, Gabe Okoye. Mm-hmm. And the mayor called me and he said, "Oh, I saw your launch video." I said, "Okay." He said, "People had a lot of great things to say about you." And I said, "Okay, yeah, I guess they did." And he said, "Well, Austin, I have to tell you that I'm going to support your opponent. I'm going to support your opponent because I am disappointed in the way you have voted." Right? Out of his mouth.
And how did that affect your campaign?
The support that the mayor gave to my opponent and another city councilman, because they were both on social media mischaracterizing me as someone with no ideas, someone who I guess got in the way of success for the city, who impeded success for the city, right? As well, when you get backing from the mayor's a longtime citizen of Lawrenceville. He served as the DDA, Downtown Development Authority chair. He served on the city council. He has business in the city, so on and so forth. He's a legacy resident, graduated from Central Gwinnett High School, so on and so forth. And when you have the backing of someone like that, of course, it's probably going to tilt your way, right? But I understood what they were trying to do. They were trying to mischaracterize me, right, as someone, because of the words they used. The city is going in a better direction. The city is going in the right direction. And let me tell you something. Even with my no vote, the vote still passed. So was it really about the way I voted? Or was it a personal attack, right?
It might have been a personal attack. However, I understood last Christmas when the rest of us were enjoying our Christmas dinner, what was taking place with you?
Well, I tell you that for 4 years, I worked as a substitute teacher. I removed myself after being laid off in 22. I never really looked for another engineering or project management job because I really wanted to dedicate myself to the city council and serving the people. The final 2 years of my term was very stressful. I didn't have a vehicle. I did a lot of my work without a vehicle. I did a lot of my campaign without a vehicle, except for the times when you, as my campaign manager, helped me and you worked along with me. You would drop me off literally on one end of the city, then pick me up at the other end of the city, because I would literally walk that entire square mileage of the city, right? So it was very stressful, especially that year of campaigning. And when you give up income and your job and so on and so forth to serve people, you do it because you love doing what you do. I put a lot into that reelection campaign. My vision plan, I developed at the beginning of my campaign. My opponent said I have no new ideas. All of my ideas, my goals, objectives are embodied in that vision plan. This is the second draft because the first draft was for the first election. Okay, I'm a planner. So I've done business plans, I've done strategic plans, operations plans, marketing plans, so on. So I was going to do one for my own campaign. So that entire year was stressful. And I guess when it yielded negative results, it sort of, maybe think about a lot of things that I had to endure over that year and the years preceding that year. And, I suffered a stroke on the 22nd of December. I spoke about my uncle who transitioned. He transitioned about 3 weeks before my stroke, right? I was literally getting ready the next day to head to Florida for the funeral services.
I remembered.
When I had that stroke. I had a cousin 3 days before my stroke suffered a massive stroke in Jamaica.
Wow.
Right? So I had a lot of things going on. And an uncle before that who passed with cancer. So there's a lot of things that were going on in the family. So I was hospitalized. I was in the ER for 3 days, and when I didn't even realize I was having a stroke. As my nephew looked at me and he said, "Unc, you're looking kind of tired." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a little exhausted." So he called his mom. His mom is an RN. So he FaceTimed her and she put the phone to me so she could see me. And the first thing out of her mouth was, "Take him to the ER right now. Take him to the ER." I'm like, what? What's going on? You're having a stroke. Okay, I lived by myself for over 33 years. I've always managed myself, handled myself. So I guess I didn't realize I was having a stroke.
I'm thankful that your nephew was with you.
Yeah.
And we have to take better care of our health. We have to make sure that we go to our doctors and make sure that our body is working the right way. I never found out about your condition until after Christmas because you didn't want anyone to know until the new year.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful that you could sit here with us today and share your perspective on Guyana, on Lawrenceville,
Yeah.
because we almost lost you. So
Yeah.
I am grateful to have you here today. We are going to transition to what's called the lightning round.
Okay.
Zlography lightning round.
Okay.
What
all
that
right.
is, I'm going to say a sentence or a word, and the first thing that comes to mind, that is what you say.
Okay.
Okay? Guyanese pepper pot or Antiguan pepper pot?
Guyanese pepper pot.
Antigua own better. Guyanese cook-up rice or Antiguan seasoned rice?
Guyanese cook-up rice.
Football or cricket?
Football.
Black cake or Christmas pudding?
Black cake.
Favorite Guyanese dish?
Metem.
Favorite place in Guyana?
Seawalls.
One thing every visitor should experience in Guyana?
They should experience Kaichor Falls.
I've heard of that.
Yes.
One Guyanese tradition you will never give up?
I think being an uncle and being the kind of person who offers wisdom to my young children. I remember how my
One
aunt,
word, Austin.
I'm sorry. Just being someone of wisdom to my young nieces and nephews.
What Guyanese value has influenced your leadership most?
Determination.
The people's voice is?
Paramount to democracy.
See, I would have said Austin Thompson. The people's voice is Austin Thompson's. Like today's theme is the people's voice.
Yeah, both.
What do you hope that people will remember most about you?
I hope that people will remember I was committed to them. They asked for the commitment. I was accessible, and I was committed.
You heard it here, everyone. Before we close, here is next week's action item. Learn who represents you. Attend a city council meeting. Volunteer. Ask questions. Vote. Your voice matters. Use it. Austin, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for sharing your journey and your perspective. Leadership is about listening, serving, and remaining committed to the people. For more information, visit us at Zlography.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching Zlography. I'm Debz. Stay informed, stay engaged, govern your government. We'll see you next time on Zlography.